morning?
Very.
Yes.
Let's begin, shall we?
Yes.
I do want to say, if you've ever doubted the teachings and the on-time words that come out of this church, not just mine, I'm not just saying that because I'm up here, but all the teachers, anybody who stands behind this pulpit or that podium in there and teaches on Wednesday night, we have some crazy on-time words.
Yes.
All right, and I was thinking this morning, right before Roe v. Wade got overturned, I had put a lesson together that was all about we need to praise like the things that we're wanting and needing have already been delivered to us.
Yes.
And we need to walk as if those things have already been handed to us.
Yes.
Because they have been. And so the reason a lot of times those things aren't unlocked and we don't see them come to fruition or come to pass is because we're not walking like we're supposed to. That was the lesson. Let's praise like Roe v. Wade's already been overturned.
Amen. I
And a couple of days later, remember it shocked the world. Nobody knew it. A couple days later, Roe v. Wade was overturned. All right. I stood here the last 2 weeks talking about how the end times is coming and our window of opportunity is closing. Since the beginning of this lesson, 2 more diseases. Tuberculosis that was breaking out at the southern border and now it's breaking out in New York. Of all places, right? Could be righteous judgment being poured out in the land. Has hit New York. What was the other one? Malaria is making a comeback. Not only that, but Israel is at war as of yesterday.
Don't forget the bed bugs in France.
Oh, and the bed bugs in France. So this is an on-time kind of word. And don't take my word for it. Turn your TV on.
Yes.
And look at the few things that have just rolled out since we were in here last Sunday. All right, big stuff. Oh, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
We were just talking about how much we missed y'all.
So good to see you.
For anyone who's watching, we now have one very poor performing baseball team plus 2 alternates. We're already improving.
So Sabrina and I are alternates already.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all were some of the first ones to the field.
No,
So,
you
no.
watched us run.
Paula will be here momentarily, and that will be a
I'll
3rd
run,
alternate.
period.
So now we're doing okay.
I like what I put me in the altar.
We actually have enough for a team, a first base coach, and a third base coach.
We got
We're
this.
self-sufficient.
We got it.
So just in the time that we met last week, there's been 3 more diseases 2 more diseases and 1 more in the form of bed bugs. And Israel is at war. So don't take my word for it when I say that this thing's coming to a close and we had better get busy because our window of opportunity is coming to a close as well. Just turn on your TV or turn on your phone.
Yes.
Right? It's scary what is going on. So where we left off last week is we looked into the notion of you would think with prophecies coming fulfilled now on a daily basis that the church would be a little more urgent, they would move with a little more precision, they would be more determined to do what the church has been tasked with doing, which is furthering the kingdom, saving souls, and taking as many people with us as we possibly can. But when you look at the church overall, that's all churches, ours included, because that's the kind of, we're not going to pass off any kind of accountability. When you look at the churches in general, and when you look at the body or the kingdom, we're just not really doing what we need to be doing, and we're not moving with a sense of urgency, even though we can see every single day Scriptures come to pass right before our eyes. So to the skeptic, that proves that the Bible is true. We see the signs that He set in place to let us know, because we talked about this yesterday at the family reunion. He doesn't want us to be kept in the dark. We may not know the day or the hour, but we're going to know the season.
Yes.
And so there's something that's bubbling inside of the church that's saying, hopefully it is, that's saying, we've got to get to work. This thing is winding down. Right? Is there something inside of you that says, hands down, without a doubt, I'm a part of the generation that's going to see the return of Jesus?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I wouldn't have said that myself when I was a kid, because I was in the clubhouse of, I don't know how long Mom and Dad have preached this, But I know that the pastors they were saved under have been preaching that their whole ministry, and they're not young people. This has been something that they've been talking about for a long, long time. Without a doubt, I'm a part of the generation that's going to see the return of Jesus.
Yes.
I believe that. And as spooky as that is, because like Sister Vicky, or Vic as I call her, touched on last week, we've all got lost loved ones that aren't ready.
Yes.
And so the purpose of this class is to put a little pep in your step and share the simple truth of the gospel. And we've got to bring those in because the window is closing and not everybody gets to go. And that's the sad truth of it.
That's right.
So with prophecies being fulfilled one right after another, you think that we would move with a little more urgency. We're not. So the question is not how did this happen? It happened because, the question of how did this happen? How did we arrive at the end times? The answer is it was always coming. And we discussed that in some verses last week. The scriptures plainly say, do not fear. This had to happen. This is the beginning of sorrows. That's the only thing that should make you feel comfortable, is your lack of activity or your diligence if you're on the other side of that coin. It doesn't matter how much you participate or don't participate. We were set to arrive at this moment.
Yes.
And that's okay. But it's what we do from this moment forward. So, the question is, where is the church? With everything that's going on, I think it's hilarious that someone put on Facebook, I wonder how many people are going to be talking about what's going on in Israel tomorrow. A lot of people don't want to talk about these things because it opens Pandora's box to the end times.
Yes.
And you'll find out as a pastor or a minister or someone who just witnesses and shares their testimony, when you start talking about Jesus coming back and you start talking about eternity and how you're going to miss it if you don't make changes in your life, people don't like to admit that there's something wrong with what they're doing. Your churches will empty out. Your Sunday schools will thin out a little bit. The conversation will be closed. We had a conversation yesterday with someone at our family reunion. You would talk about Jesus and he would talk about politics.
Yep.
And the thing about it is it's easier to talk about politics because it's easier to be angry at politicians. When you start talking
Yes.
about Jesus, you always arrive at a point where you have to realize there's something wrong with you.
Yes.
I'm the problem.
Yes.
And so you'll find out that people don't want to partake in those conversations. So that's where the church is at. They've went to sleep out of fear of offending someone or making someone uncomfortable. I would have loved to have sat in on some of the conversations that Jesus, when he was manifested into the image of man, I would have loved to have been a part of some of those conversations that he had with other people one-on-one. Don't you know that he made them uncomfortable?
Yes.
I'm not saying that you can't lead someone to Jesus without making them uncomfortable, but I'm saying anytime that you go to someone and your goal is to get them to turn away from who they are and who they've been okay with being and I'm that way because my daddy was that way. My daddy was that way because his daddy was that way. It gets a little uncomfortable. We cannot be afraid to make people uncomfortable.
Amen.
What's going to be more uncomfortable is standing before the Lord and telling Him, I kept my mouth closed because I was afraid of how people are going to react. That may seem pretty sincere and genuine in this moment, but it's going to feel real silly when you're looking Him in the face telling Him that you didn't do what you were scripturally obligated to do because you were scared that someone would take offense. I don't want to be on that side of that thing. Okay, so where's the church? They're sleeping. Why are they sleeping? We touched this briefly last week. They went to sleep because they have simply fallen. They have gotten used to what they have fallen in love with. All right, a lack of love and intimacy with the Father will quickly sideline a Christian and put them to sleep even faster. That's where we're going to pick up this week. So your spirit man only thrives because of love and devotion to the Father. You can look back at your spiritual walk, and anytime you really weren't feeling it, which we've all been there, let's not pretend to be super saints. We've all been there. Anytime that we're not really feeling it, or the people around us are up here and for whatever reason we're down here, or when we're doing these motions, which is what most people do most of their lives, if you look back at the root cause of what that is, you're not loving the Father quite enough.
Amen.
You're not initiating correspondence quite enough. You're not praying like you should be. You're not worshiping like you should be. You're not getting in the Word like you should be. And so we find that the problem lies with us. But the truth in that equation, excuse me, is that when your spirit man thrives, you thrive. And that comes from love and devotion to the Father. When we don't have that, when we get used to what we've fallen in love with, because in the beginning it's great, we come in and we don't like who we are, and it's been said countless times that lost people don't want to be lost, drug addicts don't want to be strung out on drugs, alcoholics don't want to be alcoholics, people who smack their spouses around don't want to be that kind of person. Those people don't want to be left that way. Well, I have no idea where I was going with that. So let's back it up a second. We're just going to back it up all the way because I have no idea where that was coming from. Don't you hate when that happens? It was going to be good. It sounded like it was going to be good. So we find that when our spirit man is not doing well, things in our lives start to change a little bit.
Yes.
Very quickly we find out that our prayer life is taking a back seat.
Yes.
Right? The second that we start to back up because we're a little uncomfortable with where things are going, or we're just a little tired, or we're a little worn out, and that happens too. Anybody
Yes.
else just get tired of going and going and going?
Yes.
Don't you look forward to things at church, but then a little piece of you is like, oh, something else. Right? When we get a little tired and we decide to back up a few times, we find out that our spirit man is not doing very well, and our prayer life takes a hit first. Our worship goes to the back burner. Our growth becomes stunted. There's no growth when you're taking steps backwards. There's no growth if you're standing exactly where you're at right now.
Amen.
Our growth is stunted. Our ability or desire to press in goes completely away. There's lots of Sundays where lots of people go into lots of different churches and they really don't feel up to it, but there's a desire on the inside to dig in and press in because they know that they need to be there. I've gone to church my whole life. I'm just going to be honest with you. I start missing Wednesdays. It's hard for me to come back on Wednesdays because I feel like I got a night of the week back. I shouldn't feel that way. I know better than that. But if I've spent my whole life in church, every single Wednesday and every single Sunday and every single revival and every single extra service, every single night has been committed to being here, rather forcefully most of the time, or by choice, if it's easy for me to miss a Wednesday and think, I want my Wednesdays back, how much easier is it for someone else to come in who hasn't grown up in church, who doesn't see the importance of being here every time the doors are open? I'm sorry, we need to be here every time the doors are open. But how much easier is it for them to fall out?
Yes.
Everybody in here has missed a service for whatever reason. Sometimes we just don't feel like coming. It's hard to get back on the bus, isn't it? It's very difficult. So our ability and desire to press in, when that goes away, you're finished. Because there's nothing pushing you to be here unless you've been gifted with a spouse who's going to drag you out the door. I've told Brandy before, I don't feel like going to church tonight. Babe, we're going. I got a slight headache. I can milk this and it'd be a good reason to miss church. Babe, you're going. We're going. And thank God for that, because if it was up to me, I would have stayed at home that night. And when you get here, you're glad that you got here. So our ability and desire to press in goes away. And once it goes away, we're finished.
So, in just talking about the connection that we make with the church, I had an opportunity to talk to somebody in the last several days.
Who was it?
I'm not going to tell you, but I don't even know if they've ever really been to church like with us or whatever, but I know that there's always, the sprinklings and the conversations, that religious thing. And so I invited the person to church. Before I could even get the invitation, I work on Sundays. I said, okay. Well, if there ever comes a time that you don't work on Sundays, we would love to see you, But before this, they were telling me about how there was somebody that they knew that was really going through a hard time, and they were like, you just need to pray, and they were saying all the right things, and it was like they realized that as soon as they opened that door, because I don't do it. I really I don't open those doors all the time. It's not me, but as soon as they open that door, it's like, shoot, she's gonna ask me. So then it came, but I told her, you don't even have to be in church. You don't have to go, you don't have, and I thought, oh, here we go. We're already laying the foundation for the excuse. I know that there's situations where people can't be here, and when they are working, legitimately working, it's crazy if people choose, to work. When you could have worked a Saturday, you'll take the Saturday off, but you'll work the Sunday. You want to have Saturday off, but you'll work Sunday. So I know that, if you can't be here, if there's a reason that the Lord is okay. But let's just talk generalities. The Lord gave us the church. He said that we should not forsake our coming together. Don't forsake the assembling of ourselves together. But that's not where that scripture ends. It says, even more so, as you see the day approaching. It's important that we're together. We gain strength when we're together, not just instruction. I've been in church now for 33 years this month. We've been in church. It's not that we don't have things to learn, but I promise you, it's a rare occasion that we hear something we've never heard before. That we haven't heard the sermons before, the lessons before, all of the faith and joy and strength and, how to get through this and I promise you, we have heard it more than once. But I eat tacos more than once.
Come on.
I wear the same outfit more than once. I listen to the same music more than once. I go on vacation to the same places. I drive the same car. There's benefits to the things that happen over and over and over because repetition builds us. Repetition secures us. It makes us feel safer and stronger. So to be in a church service or a part of a church for an extended period of time isn't just so you can get taught everything you need to know and go out the door and never be seen or heard from again. It's because in here we are strengthened. The church is the gift of God to His body.
Yes.
And the instructions are for our benefit. To be here together, it bothers me when people don't put, and I'm a preacher. And I love the preached word, but it really bothers me when people won't sit underneath instruction. It bothers me. Jason, it bothers me. Does it bother you? When you're teachers, it bothers you. Because here's where we learn. The preachers throw it out, and he throws it out, and I appreciate it, and that word is good, and it feeds me. But teaching is where we pick apart that word and find out the importance of that structure. And it becomes, it's like a feast when you sit underneath teaching. And it bothers me when people can just place themselves under preaching for all the goosebumps and all that. But the teaching, they run from that. That bothers me. Because God gave us teachers and preachers and evangelists and apostles and prophets. Servants in the body, not to just serve Him. It's about serving each other. It's about helping each other grow. It's about even as the day approaches, that we don't leave each other in deception. There is so much, yesterday at the reunion, we had those moments where, my heart was breaking for this family member that we had because it's like, God, I don't know what you're going to do to open up these eyes. It's going to have to be you, or he's not going to make it. There's so much deception there, and yeah, he wants to root it in politics, but you're right, he don't want to get down to the Jesus thing. Because when that conversation got too tough, he switched it. He wanted to flip it and get it into something we could all argue about. Even as the day approaches, we need to stay connected to the church. And people want to act like that's not important. I'm telling you, after 30 years, it's important. It's as important to me as it was the day that I got saved. And it's where we grow. It's where we love each other. We find a way. We put all those things into practice in the church. We learn how to forgive. We learn how to accept people. We learn how to pray. We learn how to stand. We learn how to recognize the signs of the time. The blinders are removed. In here, it's safe. We can grow. We can be vulnerable. And I love, out there, I can't be vulnerable. They're going to eat eat my lunch. They will y'all's too, but in here, I can be vulnerable. I can be weak. I can need help. And I can do it right here because this is the safe place that the Lord set apart for us to make us what we need to be out there. And I'll tell y'all this real quick and then you can get back. But I told Brad this the other day. There's been some things that the Lord's been showing me. And, you know, I want him to tarry not because I'm not ready to go. I'm ready to go. But there are works that need to be done and people that need to be saved. And there's words I want to see come to pass before we leave. I mean, I just do. But he's been showing me some things that should he tarry, I know that we're going to be moving into. And I told Brad, I said, one of the things that I feel like is I don't know that we'll ever grow a big, big church. And I'm okay with that. I really am. We don't have to be thousands of people big. I don't know that I wouldn't even want to go to a church like that. So I don't even know if I want to pastor a church like that. And I know that sounds awful, right? But I don't want to lose some of the stuff that is present in a smaller congregation. And I don't know. I've watched other people. I don't think you can keep it both ways. I don't know. But I think we are going to be a church that we really are going to be like China talked about when we came back from Ladies Retreat. We really are going to be that refill station. We're going to come together and we're going to be in here and we're going to get teaching and preaching and prayer. And this is where we're going to be vulnerable. And this is where we're going to be able to empty all of that stuff that's been put on us. We're going to be able to bring the attacks of the enemy before our brothers and sisters. And they're going to pray us through. And we're going to be refilled with everything we need. And then we're going to be able to go out there and give it. I believe we're going to be a church of ministries. And I don't know that that's going to attract a lot of people that don't want to be a part of the ministry. They just want to come in and sit. I think that we're going to break into you know, and the ministries are unbelievable. I mean, everything becomes a ministry. Movies become ministries. Prayer meetings become ministries. Parking lot worship becomes ministries. You know, feeding the homeless becomes ministries. I mean, there's ministries galore. To say I don't teach or preach in a church or sing in a church, you just have a very small idea of what ministry is really about. But I believe that's what we're going to be. I believe that we're going to be groups of ministries that come in here. It was prophesied to us that we would be an apostolic hub, that we would come together and that people would go out and carry out ministries in the street. And then we're going to have to come back because out there you empty yourself. Everything you got gets poured out into ministry. So church is important, especially in this last day. It is you know, I have intimacy with the Lord at home, but I have to push past dishes and bills and taking care of dogs and homeschool to get there. When I come here, that's why I came. There's nothing here that's going to keep me from it. I don't have the distractions here that I have at home. So when I get here, I love being with y'all, but I love being with him, and he's why I'm here, and I know I'm going to be him here. There's no doubt in my mind.
Add to that, you know, the repetition thing. Depending on where you are in your life, a scripture can mean something different to you.
Yeah.
And the way somebody unpacks a message
Yes.
can reach certain people at a time in their life when they need to hear it.
Yes.
I could teach the same thing you're teaching on and reach different people. You just got to remember that. The way that somebody teaches something, the way that somebody brings something to us, depending on the teaching style, is going to reach different people where they are, right where they are, right where they need to hear.
Yes.
Because of what we've been through in our lives. Because of the mind-blown moments, you know, that we get. A lot of times with Mr. Matt here.
Oh, stop.
You know it happens.
Yeah,
You just have a way of unpacking things a different way, and it makes sense. You get simple, you get to the hard stuff, you get to the meanest stuff. I feel sorry for those people that don't want to be here and hear the same word in a different way and get what we have.
And I'll say this too, I don't know about y'all, but I've gotten so leery of TV preachers, podcasts, things like that. I want to be connected to a local church where I see people living out there alive before Christ in restaurants and at ball fields and at Walmart and stop signs you know, just going about their daily lives, I just don't put much confidence in people that I can't see the other part of their lives.
That would be difficult. Anybody else have anything else?
I like something Vicki said about simple, that we've been in the Word our whole lives, and you're bringing it simple, but I'm getting something out of it. Yeah, I think too many of them are trying to show something so heavy, like look how intelligent I am, and they're just dumbfounding the people. And that's something that we got to get back to, is the simplicity of the gospel. I mean, I like the Greek words and I use them, you know, and all that stuff, but sometimes we can get so smart that we can't teach anybody. And I see that sometimes. And you were talking about like these big mega churches, and the preacher comes in and works everybody into an ecstasy, and then they walk out the back door and you don't get to shake their hands or even hug their necks. You know, they're like in their Rolls Royce headed down to the next convention.
Yeah.
You know, that don't do nothing for me. You know, I mean, I enjoy going to hear music and great preachers and all that, but you know, he's just a man, ultimately. You know, he's just a man. He's got to go to the bathroom like everybody else. And he ain't nothing. That's what bothers me so bad about it. They set themselves up so high, and I just cringe at that when I see that. Look at me, you know. Put the light right here on me. Shine it on me. You know, I don't like that. And I don't think God gets any glory out of that. But it's the simple things, you know. I mean, when you're trying to deal with people, hurting people. We were down here praying last Sunday at this prayer service. And two ladies come up, and Brandy gave one of them a word she had in a dream. Then you got something for one, and and then we prayed with them, and it was just the simple. These ladies had been in church their whole lives too, and it was just the simple things, just the simple thing coming in a different way, under a different anointing, same spirit but a different anointing. You know, and it's just. That's what we need right there. We need to be able to talk to people, not be so above them, but to talk to them. I got a friend that we get messages from him every now and then. Every time, and Cheryl can call him out by name. We ain't gonna do it, but
Who is he?
every time he posts something or says something, you just feel like it's a look at me. Because he throws something out there. You got some people like that?
Who are they?
I'm thinking of one.
They throw
We all three know.
all this lingo out there, and what they're saying is right, but why did you do that? You know, why are you, you know, I'm talking about the love of Jesus, or about God healing somebody, and you're going to come back with a 15-letter Greek word, and then explain it out here in the course of the conversation. What's the point of that? Who are you impressing? You know, and it's just every word that comes out of his mouth is that way. Everything he types is that way. Every word is that way. And it just turns me off. And, you know, I may have said that here recently, but it just, you know, I think that's just where a lot of them are. They write books on stuff like that. Come out with it. Notice how many books come out, all these new thoughts. And there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right.
You know, it's the same words it's always been. And if you, I was talking yesterday to the family, we were talking about the word and all that, and my brother, who I love dearly, said that we take what everybody else said. And I said, no, I sit down a lot with just simple, the word, and God will give me something that I've never seen before. I've been in the Word forever, it feels like. Sometimes I feel like I've preached the whole Bible. And then I'll sit down and read something, and it's just illumination in that moment, you know, and that's for me. Or maybe I'll sit down and prepare something, or preach it, or teach it, or whatever. But it's God giving us that stuff, you know. And we need to be taught. My Lord, we need to be taught. We need to be taught the right word, you know what I mean? Anyway, I'm going to put that.
No, it's good stuff. Anybody else have anything? Oh my goodness.
No, that just is making reminds me of yesterday. Like, so much came from yesterday. Like, it was such just a God ordained moment. Like, on so many levels. But I'm thinking about the simplicity. And one of the things that came to me during the conversation was the power of sharing a testimony. And how, testimonies aren't always easy to share.
Exactly.
Because it means we went through something. We went through a test. We went through a mess. We've gone through something that the world wants us to be ashamed of. Maybe there's something about a family member that that we don't want to share what they're going through because we don't want it to make us look bad. Because maybe they're going through addiction or something, and it's like, oh, I don't want anybody to know that that person's going through that. When there is power in sharing our testimonies, and there is power in giving God glory in what other people are walking through. Not in a gossiping way. We don't gossip, but let's just keep it simple. I think that God, over the years, He has wanted people, let me go back. I think the enemy has kept people in bondage by silencing them. To be too afraid to speak out. And to make them feel like nobody else is going through this, or I can't share this, I can't say this, when really God's plan was even the rocks will cry out. Okay, so share this. You're going through this for a reason. You have to share it. And there's other people who need to hear it. And you never know, just one little thing of what you say and how it can impact people. And it can be in the simplest way. And just one little word that can come out of your mouth and they're like, oh my gosh, you have no idea that I was just talking to this person and said that exact thing. And what you say is confirmation for them. And it's just simple conversation. And then the power of the seeds that we sow. And like we got to see that yesterday. Something that Matt was sharing with me. Years ago, he planted this seed, and it looked like it was fell on dry ground, that it was just eaten up by thorns. And then yesterday we find out like that fruit has manifest. The fruit of that seed that was planted now has manifest. And so, I think that it's important not to, we walk by faith and not by sight.
Yes.
And so we don't always see what we think we should see in the timing that we want to see it in. But the simple thing is we just walk in obedience. Just be obedient. If God tells you to speak it or to go there or to do something, just do it. And let's just not hesitate, because we have no idea the impact or the waves that it's going to make and what He has further down the road for that person or for us. So, that's all I have. Just keep it simple, stupid.
Who are you talking to?
The kiss,
That's
Kiss. Wasn't anybody in particular.
Oh,
That's a phrase that people say, I like to kiss.
I'm not familiar with the phrase.
They say kiss, just remember kiss. So keep it simple, stupid.
I've never heard that.
I think.
You're so sheltered. I don't know how you have it.
I've heard it.
Oh,
Quit messing with her.
you do
I've
that.
heard it. Yeah, I do that. Anybody else? I like the open discussion. Anybody else before we blaze through 5 pages of notes in 9 minutes? All right, we're moving on. So when we starve our spirit man and it's not thriving the way it should be, things immediately begin to take place. We're talking about what leads up to the Christian being asleep, what leads up to the church being asleep. And so, recap, our prayer takes a back seat almost immediately. That's what goes. Unless it's some kind of selfish prayer, because we've always got room for selfish prayer.
Yeah.
Worship goes to the back burner. That's an extra. That's an outward expression that requires just too much effort. And I'm not feeling it today. So it goes to the back burner. Without those two things, you're not going to grow at all. So as a byproduct, your growth has been stunted. your ability and desire, more importantly, to dig in and press in goes away completely. Because what's even the point? And here's a big one. Who is actually going to lay hands on the sick and see them healed in the name of someone they really are in love with? You ever thought about that? Right? We wonder why we're not seeing healings, but they're coming from the hands of people who are just kind of over it.
Yeah.
Right? Who's going to go the extra mile and put their hands on somebody and believe that they're really going to be healed in the name of somebody that they're just not really sold out on?
Jesus.
And so now healings become scarce. Miracles are something that happened, in the old days and occasionally in the 90s. That stuff starts to fade away because we're getting used to what we fell in love with. And don't say that it can't happen. Church attendance is the initiation of contact, but it doesn't guarantee you an experience.
That's right.
So many people, countless people, get up on Sundays. They get their kids out of the bed. They force breakfast down their throats. Go brush your hair. Brush your teeth. No, change clothes. That doesn't match. I check myself over. I've done put on some pounds. There's really only a few t-shirts that I can comfortably fit into. Even then, I'm changing t-shirts left and right. On Sunday mornings, we make all the effort to come to church. And that's a great initiation, right? To be here. But sitting in that seat does not guarantee anybody an experience. You can come in the door and sit down and get up, and we see it every Sunday. Walk right out the same door that you walked into, completely the same way as when you walked in. Coming to church is a great initiation, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. And don't say it can't happen, because it does. So you can be here every time the doors are open and still be asleep. Anyone guilty of just going through the motions at any point? I know that I have. Just going through the motions, whether it be at work, whether it be at church, marriage, or life in general, it's easy to do. In the beginning, and that's all of them. That's a new job, that's being a newlywed, that's coming to church, that's whatever it may be, that's life in general, something new. It's exciting. We put our best foot forward. We give it all of our affection, all of our attention, all of our devotion. Over time, we get tired. We feel invalidated. The newness wears off. We go on autopilot, and suddenly we're going through the motions, and we don't even realize that we've completely gone to sleep in whatever aspect of something that we used to really, really enjoy. What once gave us purpose has just become something that we have to get through. Right? We used to come to church because we really wanted to be here and we really needed something. And now it's just, okay, we got to get through Sunday school. Okay, worship has started. They're going to do 2 songs if it drags out, 3 songs if one song doesn't hit. If one of the songs are amiss, they're going to fire off a 3rd one. Okay, they did 2. We got to get, here goes Brad. He's a 20-minute preacher tops. So we're looking at the clock. Okay, if he preaches 20 minutes today, we're going to be out of here by 12:15. And so we used to come here because it gave us purpose, and now we come here and we're laying out a plan just to get through it and get back home. The things we used to love and be excited about, suddenly we're just trying to get through them. It's the same thing with the church. We ask, where is the urgency? We see this thing wrapping up a little more every single day, but we don't see the church position itself any differently than we're positioned right now. And so it's as if we're completely oblivious to the things that are going on. Why is that? That's because the church has gone to sleep.
That's right.
Urgency cannot be found in a place of complacency. Urgency is absent when the church is asleep. You can't be asleep and be urgent about anything.
That's right.
There's no sense of urgency about you when you've gone to sleep. That's in the physical or that is in the spiritual. So let me share one of my favorite examples of how easily we can go from chasing and pursuing Jesus and just really getting on his nerves with how much we want to spend time with him to flat out going to sleep on the job. So we're going to be reading out of Matthew chapter 26, verse 36 through 46.
Say it again.
Matthew chapter 26, verse 36 through 46. It says, Then Jesus led his disciples to an orchard called the Oil Press. He told them, Sit here while I go and pray nearby. He took Peter, Jacob, and John with him. However, an intense feeling of great sorrow plunged his soul into agony. We're talking about Jesus. Surprise, surprise. And he said to them, "My heart is overwhelmed and crushed with grief. It feels as though I'm dying. Stay here and keep watch with me." Then he walked a short distance away, and overcome with grief, he threw himself face down on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if there is any way that you can deliver me from this suffering, please take it from me. Yet what I want is not important, for I only desire to fulfill your plan for me." Then an angel from heaven appeared to strengthen him. Verse 40 says, "Later he came back to his 3 disciples and found them all asleep, sound asleep. He awakened Peter and said to him, 'Could you not stay awake with me for even 1 hour? Keep alert and pray that you'll be spared from this time of testing. Your spirit is eager enough, but your humanity is weak.'"
Yes.
Verse 42 says, "Then he left them for a second time to pray in solitude. He said to God, 'My Father, if there is not a way that you can deliver me from this suffering, then your will must be done.' He came back to the disciples and found them sound asleep, for they couldn't keep their eyes open." This is a second time. "So he left them and went away to pray the same prayer for the third time. When he returned again to his disciples, he woke them, saying, 'Are you still sleeping? Don't you know the hour has come for the Son of Man to be handed over to the authority of sinful men? Get up and let's go, for the betrayer has arrived.'" So Jesus, asked them, "Please stay awake with me. My soul is crushed. I feel like I'm dying." And they went to sleep on it. All right, this is a group of men that have walked with and beside Jesus. They have witnessed miracles, performed miracles themselves, seen countless conversions and deliverances. They're living out the things that we're basing our whole principles of faith upon. They witnessed it with their own two eyes, and some of it was done by their own 2 hands. Jesus would withdraw to pray by himself, and they would go seek to find him. There's lots of instances in the Bible. We don't have time to go over every single one of them. Well, there's lots of instances in the Bible where Jesus withdrew to pray alone. You've read that? Do you believe that? You've seen that? I'm not just trying to sell it to you. He would withdraw to pray alone, and what would they do? They would go, "Where did Jesus go?" And then they went to seek him out. They couldn't stand to be away from him. He would cross the sea to go pray by himself. He would be crushed, and he just wanted to be alone with the Father. And here come the disciples trying to sneak in while he's trying to pray, because they couldn't stand to leave him alone. They couldn't stand to be apart from him. And that's when he was trying to intentionally withdraw to himself. And so now he's in the garden. His spirit is crushed. He's anguished. He's terrified. He knows that he's going to die. And we know that he's scared. People get upset when you go, Jesus was scared. Jesus didn't step out in the garden and go, "Here I am." He knew what was coming. But he asked the Father, "Could you please just pass this cup from me? I really don't want to do this." But it's not about what I want. It's about what you want.
Yes.
How quickly did the disciples go from chasing him down and getting on his nerves, not giving him the solitude that he was seeking so that he could pray by himself, to him begging them, "Stay awake and pray with me. Please stay awake and pray with me." And then they went to sleep on him. In his hour of greatest need, the disciples, who couldn't stand to be away from him, went to sleep not once, not twice, but 3 times. We would like to think that if Jesus came to us and said, "Jason, I need you to stay up with me," you'd go, "You got it, man." Who wouldn't, right? Wouldn't you like to say, "That would be me"?
Yes.
All right, would that be any of us? Well, we'll put our hand up, right? We'll throw our hand up because it's all, theoretical. If Jesus came to any person in here and said, "Stay awake and pray with me," there's not a person in here that would admit that they would go to sleep. Right? All right. But the window of opportunity is closing. And he's begging, "Don't go to sleep. Not now. You don't know the time, the hour or the day, but you know the season.
Yes.
You had better stay awake and you had better remain watchful." And what did the church do? The church went to sleep. We are the disciples in the garden.
Yes.
Look at him right in his face when he's begging us to stay awake and pray with him. Absolutely. You got it, boss man. You got it, huh? Yeah, we'll pray. and then they go to sleep. And we read these scriptures and we think, how in God's name did you look the Son of God in the eye and say, okay, I'm sorry, I fell asleep once, it won't happen again. And go to sleep a second time. And a third time. And we go, that's great, I would never do that. Yet we go to church every Sunday and we're asleep through the whole thing.
My God.
We watch prophecy just lying down the newspaper on every single news site, right or left, it doesn't matter. We see that roll out before our eyes. Please don't go to sleep, not in this hour. Right? That's the scriptures that he left for us. And what did the
Yes.
church do? The church went to sleep. He's practically begging them, please stay awake and pray with me. I'm overwhelmed. I'm crushed with grief and distress just for a little while. Stay with me and pray with me. These are the words of Jesus. The man they gave it all away for because they gave their lives up to follow him in pursuit of Jesus.
Yes.
The man they gave it all away for now needs them to stay awake just for a little while, and they can't do it. They ultimately at one point give their lives for him on down the road, yet at one time they couldn't even stay awake and pray with him. Loved him with every fiber of who they were. He was their purpose for taking their next breath, and still arrived at a place where they went to sleep on him. It happened so easily and so quickly, and it's not beyond anybody. We're so quick to run to Jesus and cry, Lord, Lord, I need your help. Yet when the Lord sets signs and wonders in place to warn us that his return is near, when he's crying, stay awake, don't sleep, not now, wrong time, we go right to sleep without a second thought. Their closeness to Jesus didn't mean any more to them than when we come to church week after week after week and leave the same way as when we walked in, or when we watch people walk in and leave the same way as when they walk out when they walked in.
Yeah.
That should do something to us.
Yes.
To see the same people come in every single Sunday and go down to the altar for the same things. If you're not guilty, there's two parties here. You're either coming in on Sundays and you're going to sleep and you're leaving the same way as you walked in, or you're not, which I would hope that's where we are. But if not, we're watching the same people walk in and walk out every single Sunday unchanged.
Yes.
And that should do something to us. There's a sense of urgency that needs to be rediscovered in the church. We can't afford, they can't afford to walk in and walk out completely the same. Week after week after week. There's just not enough time. The closeness to Jesus, they were physically in his presence. They were breathing the same air. They could smell his breath when he talked to them. Being that close to him didn't mean anything when they went to sleep in the garden.
That's right.
And coming into his house Sunday after Sunday doesn't mean anything if you're sleeping through the services. Maybe not a physical sleep, but a spiritual sleep. You know the difference.
Yes.
The closeness doesn't mean anything. It's an advantage, but when our heart is absent, that makes all the difference.
That's right.
It's great that you're here, but you're just occupying a seat if your heart's not here. There has to be intent in our heart when we come into his house.
Yes.
Matthew chapter 15, verse 8 through 9 says, these people honor me only with their words, for their hearts are so very distant from me. They pretend to worship me, but their worship is nothing more than the empty traditions of men. And are we not seeing that play out in the churches of today? Those are the words of Christ. Do you think he doesn't know the difference in the intent of our heart when we're here or not? We're not fooling him. We're the disciples in the garden during the final hours of his life, sleeping soundly, warning after warning after warning after warning. Will we give heed to the warning, or will we continue to waste away in comfort? Because there's warnings all around us. How many more lost people will breathe their last breath lost? How many more people will we let leave the church completely the same as when they walked in?
Jesus.
How much more will we let the enemy advance on our families, on our children, on our churches, on our schools, workplaces, cities, and nations? How many more warnings will we sleep through? It's every single day there's something new. The Word teaches us in Luke chapter 21 to be alert at all times, praying for strength to stand before the Son of Man. Ephesians 5 says, awake, sleeper, and rise from the dead. Isaiah chapter 52 says, awake, awake, and put on your strength.
Yes.
Matthew chapter 24 warns us to stay awake, for we do not know on what day the Lord is coming, but we are promised that we will know the season.
Yes.
Warning and command after warning and command. As an individual, We have a choice to make. Will we continue to sleep, or will we awake and put on our strength like the Bible declares us to? As a church, we have to recognize the signs of the times and rise to the level of urgency that is just, because there is one. On our watch, these things are happening. That means we're the ones who have to answer the call. It's great that there's so many saints that went on before us and paved the way for us, but they're not the generation that's going to witness the Son of Man return.
That's right.
And so if these things are happening on our watch, that means it's our responsibility. Today we looked at some end time signs and hopefully realized just how close we're getting. We discussed the ease at which we fall asleep, even when we are in close proximity to Jesus. Now, what do we do when we need to be woken back up? Oh, it's 10:36. I'm not going to be able to finish today.
So don't.
I'm pulling a Cheryl. I need 12
That's
more
fine.
minutes.
That's all right.
Okay. Let me make a note. Okay?
I don't really appreciate that comment, but I can't argue with the truth.
I need 10 more weeks. Okay. There's no way we're going to make it. And I was trying to blow through it too.
Please don't blow through
So-
for God's sake.
Let's put a pin in it. We'll start here. Okay? And so next week, we are going to discuss how do we wake the sleeping church up? Alright? That's going to be very important because we play a key role in that.
What is it?
We're going to discuss next week how do we wake the church back up.
Okay.
Alright, so that's what we're going to do. Alright? Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Or do y'all want to go for 45 more minutes? Whatever y'all want to do, dealer's choice. 45 more minutes?
No.
No?
Let's
Bathroom break?
Let's revisit
Let's not
this.
run through it.
We're not doing that today. We can't go 45 more
Oh,
minutes.
well, I was willing. Shh.
Well, we got to have
I
church.
sat many hours under good preachers and teachers.
Alright. Well, that's where we're going to leave off today then. We'll pick back up next week and see if we can